Ms. Greene, could you tell me more about your conflict with Ms. Newman? I know you guys kind of had the trans flag and you put up another sign. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Well, actually, she started it. I've never met her before, had a conversation with her, and she put out a trans flag across the hall from me. She started with her camera on my nameplate and then planted that flag. And, you know, the Equality Act is truly the worst bill ever passed in Congress. It's not about stopping discrimination. It actually creates discrimination against women and religious freedoms. And so, you know, here's the truth, that the Democrats, and they just want to lie, but really there's only two genders, male and female. And so I responded to her video with a sign that says, there's only two genders, male and female, trust the science, because the science shows us there's only two sets of chromosomes. And so I put that video back out in response to Marie Newman, or new person. She doesn't believe in gender, so
I understand she has a trans daughter, and people said that was like very insensitive of you.
I didn't say anything about her biological son, but actually her biological son needs to stay out of my daughter's bathrooms and locker rooms. And
What made you want to put up the sign? And that's the last question, Ms. Greene.
Pardon?
Thank you for your time. You get what you get, and you don't get upset. So we'll get into it right quick. I know you and Liz Cheney have kind of had your conflicts a little bit. You're both in the Republican Party. Could you tell me, is the future of the Republican Party uniting you guys to try to beat the Democrats, or what's the future here?
Well, there are Republicans who have diametrically opposed views of other Republicans, and we have to decide what vision we're going to present to the American people. I don't want to go back to the Bushes and the Cheneys and the Romneys. I don't want to go back to the days when Republicans were inviting people across our borders illegally so that corporations could suppress wages for our citizens. I don't want to go back to the days when Republicans were advocating for regime change abroad and an interventionist foreign policy. I far prefer the Trump doctrine, and far too many Republicans fought for these crappy trade deals that allowed people to cash in all their stock and get big payoffs, but it meant the hollowing out of the towns and the villages and the cities throughout our country. So I think that President Trump had the right vision for a political realignment, and I'm still going to fight for it.
I want to follow up with you on this one last topic. I know Joe Biden was elected, obviously, and he's in office now, but there's still a lot of people talking about election fraud. Do you believe Joe Biden was the correctly duly elected president?
Well, Donald Trump won the overwhelming majority of votes cast by human beings in person somewhere. Joe Biden won the biggest margins when you separated the voting from a human being actually having to be authenticated by another human being. That does trouble me. Joe Biden is the president of the United States. People should not question that legitimacy. I think questioning whether or not he is the president hurts our country, but I also think it hurts our country if we just accept a degradation in validating the vote. Now in Florida, we used to be the laughing stock of the country. I think they were cutting alligators open and still finding votes for Al Gore down there in Palm Beach County, but we cleaned up our act. We got the right people in place. We got the right security systems in place, and now we're a model for the country. So I'm not pessimistic that we always have to endure high amounts of election fraud. I think we can get better and better, and I think Florida's a model.
There's obviously clearly some election fraud, but I know at the time attorney Bill Barr said there wasn't enough widespread evidence for voter fraud to overturn the election. Also, I know for the court case that they brought up in Pennsylvania, it was shot down 7-2. Two of the Supreme Court justices two of the three of the Supreme Court justices that Trump appointed voted against that. So what do you make of those cases with the Supreme Court and Bill Barr specifically?
It's a hell of a note that Trump got the two Bush judges with him, but couldn't get the three Trump judges with him.
Crazy.
You know,
it's almost like that the Bush people might even be better for Trump. So,
yeah, it was something that I noted, and it was something in my last conversation with the 45th president he noted as well. The jurisdictional decisions that were made, I disagreed with some of those. I thought more of those courts should have held evidentiary hearings, but this 2020 election proves that you can't always catch the fraud after the fact. If you don't catch it as it's going on, it becomes very difficult to utilize the litigation process to do it after the fact. So I got to run.
Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
You got to get out of this one. Yeah. Do it like the Super Bowl. Yeah. Remember my daughter Dion? Roger Williams. It's good to see you. Thank you for everything. appreciate it. Good to see you.
All right, we need to head back for this meeting.
Hey, Mr. Schlapp, can you please tell me what you think the biggest issue
your
that
name?
America... My name is Elad Eliyahu.
Who are you with?
I'm an independent New York City reporter. I do a lot of on-the-ground reporting on a lot of protests, but enough about me. Can you tell me what you...
You're very good.
Thank you. What do you think the biggest issue that Americans are facing today?
The whole question is America a good thing? Or is America a country that was started in such a terrible, evil, racist way that it's like irredeemable? It should be scrapped and you start over. I really think that's what a lot of the left thinks, and I think for most of us, we think it's an imperfect but great country. Can it be improved? Of course, but it's maybe even the greatest example of a country that's ever been.
Absolutely. I had a follow-up question for you.
I have a feeling I know what it is, but go ahead.
Absolutely. So let me ask. As I understand, Congressman Paul Gosar spoke at a controversial rally last night, and then he proceeded to speak.
Have you talked to Congressman Gosar?
I haven't, but I heard his comment, but I wanted to get your comment. As I understand, he also spoke at a rally here this morning at CPAC, of course. Can I get your response?
Yeah, you should talk to Paul Gosar. I will say this. We run our conference the way we want to run our conference. We invite the people we want to invite at our conference, and I'm really happy with the people we have speaking. I think we've done a great job with those decisions. I think Paul Gosar is a very good conservative member of Congress, and I think he addressed at the beginning of his remarks any mischaracterization of his role.
Mr. Schlapp, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
They let you in, huh?
What? Oh, he's not press. He's a speaker.
Please, I'm a speaker.
He's a whole ass speaker.
You can't talk to me.
Yeah.
Hey, sir,
If you can't talk to me, I have to listen to him.
You have to listen. You have to listen to me. Yeah.
Sir, can I interview you, sir?
No, I don't speak to you. I don't like you. Daily Caller, more like the Daily Rag.
And overall, what do you think about the events that transpired at the Capitol on January 6th?
Like I said, I don't agree with them. I think it was a setup. Sure. You know, I don't know. I'm not one of those people that'll tell you, hey, it was Antifa or was this. I do believe it was a setup.
Yeah. So how so? Because as I understand, there was a strong Proud Boy presence. Mm-hmm. Many people were arrested after the fact of many different groups.
Yes.
So these are people. I mean, are you still the leader of the Proud Boys?
Yes.
And what do you make of a lot of the people who are in your organization getting caught up in this? And do you believe that they should be held accountable? The people who did riot and who did breach the Capitol.
I believe that they should be held justly accountable.
Sure.
Right?
Well, they broke a lot of laws, breaching the Capitol, right?
Well, here's the thing. Breaching the Capitol isn't a law, right? The law is trespassing. And then some of these people that trespass, I'd imagine that it feels wrong that you went in there. But that alone doesn't stop you from going in somewhere. I'll give you the prime example.
But moreover, people were fighting with the police guards. There are many people breaking windows.
That's why I'm going through the levels of it. The people that just trespassed didn't break anything, didn't assault anybody. Hit them with trespassing. I'm cool with that. But they're not hit with trespassing. They're hit with trespassing and another felony charge.
I mean, these are Congress people. You have to expect them to throw the book at these people who
No, I don't. Here's the thing. That way of thinking of expect them to throw the book. No, the law is the law, right? And trespassing is trespassing. Destruction of property is destruction of property.
Yeah, but this
and
is also, moreover, this was during, when they were confirming Joe Biden to be president. Yes. So there are these more underlying parts of this. Mm-hmm. I did want to pivot a little bit because other things that you were in the news for recently was, I forgot exactly what news organization dropped it, but it came out that you worked with police in the past.
Yes,
and
that wasn't a secret.
It became very controversial in the news, and as I understand, there were some Proud Boy organizations that wanted to breach off. Can you tell me a little bit more about this?
There was 2 chapters that had a problem with it. Those 2 chapters are now back in the fray. People always say, the Proud Boys are splintering, and all we've done is grow over the years, and we're going to continue to grow. But the whole thing with they said a FBI informant. The whole thing about that was it was a story that was completely blown out of proportion. There is some truth to it. I did turn in human smuggling rings, okay, and that's pretty much the end of it.
Has your position on working with the police changed? Would you do that now?
Absolutely not. We've seen what they're doing now. We've seen what the Department of Justice has done. I've never been a thin blue line guy. Mm-hmm. I've been a person that supports police officers individually, but the truth is, the matter is, you can't fly the Gaston flag and fly the blue line flag on the same pole.
And it
makes
seems
no
as though
sense.
they are flown together in tandem very often.
And
So
I think I've always thought that was pretty stupid, because the people that are going to tread on you is those police officers, because they're going to say they're just doing their job. They're just putting food on the table. And you know what? That's not what a police force is supposed to do. They took an oath to defend the Constitution. And yes, okay, I'll reiterate, I'll keep saying it. It was wrong for people to even go into the Capitol, right? But I think right now what we're seeing from the DOJ is they want heads on a pike.
We're out here today in Orlando, Florida for CPAC. Can you tell me a little bit more about why you came out today?
Sure. Well, CPAC is the who's who of conservatives, right? So we want to be here to support our president and make sure that the Republican Party understands we're going to push an America First philosophy.
You said we're out here to support our president.
Yes.
Does that imply Joe Biden?
President Trump will always be president.
Awesome. So I know in the 2020 election was very controversial, and many in the media are questioning the integrity of the election. Do you accept the results of the 2020 election?
I accept the results of the election, and I'm working towards election integrity, which is why I'm asking people not to run for Congress. If you want to make change, I want you to become a state senator, a state representative, because that is how you make true changes at the state legislative level. And quite frankly, that's what the Democrats did. After they lost their election in 2016, what did they do? They changed the laws legally in California and allowed for ballot harvesting. And Orange County flipped every single Republican seat from red to blue, and it was done by changing the law. And so therefore, I think that we should do the same and change the law at the state level.
Very interesting. One topic I also wanted to ask you about is Americans nowadays are facing many different issues. Some people think, political prosecution, like being canceled, is becoming a big issue. Obviously, we have this coronavirus pandemic. People are getting sick, or people are losing their money because of these lockdowns and they can't survive out here. I want to ask, what do you think the biggest issue that Americans today are facing?
Well, I think of, when it comes down to the lockdowns, I especially think of the single mother. I think of the single father. Because put yourself in their position for a second. You're a single mom, you got babies you want to take care of, you're working 2 to 3 jobs. But here in liberal lockdown states like New York, California, for example, the jobs are either closing or you're getting fewer hours, and then the schools aren't open. So how are you going to possibly work your jobs and take care of your children when they no longer can have in-person learning? And I think that those families are really struggling the most right now because they're suffering the consequences of having to choose to be responsible parents versus providing a paycheck to even take care of their families. And I think definitely rent is a big deal. Getting money, I think honestly that is the most important thing affecting our families right now, which is why I want to see in this America First movement that if we are truly focused on liberty and we are focused on freedom, then we need to elect more leaders like Governor DeSantis who are going to be focused on opening our schools, opening our businesses, and giving choice. The Democrats will tell you with their lips that they are pro-choice, but they're not. They are mandating on what they believe should be a renewable resource. And then we have Texas. They are mandating on closing down businesses and schools, taking away your choice for the single mom, the single father. And so I think that is the future of the Republican Party. Let's make it about liberty, freedom, choice, America first.
I wanted to follow up because I kind of hear you differentiating between these conservatives who are so-called America First and then I suppose other. So can you tell me more about this so-called, almost a civil war really in this Republican Party? And is this going to create a successful path for the Republican Party in the future as a whole, right? Because if the party splits along the Liz Cheney types and the Matt Gaetz types, they're not going to be able to have enough votes to beat the Democrats. So just what do you make of this civil war, so-called? You keep talking about this America First movement contrasted against people like Liz Cheney. Some people call them rhinos. So could you expand a little bit on whether we want to excise those people from the party or how we're going to, have another successful election moving forward? Because the Trump coalition kind of brought those together.
The Republican Party is the America First Party. And I would say it's 85%, if not more, America First, and 15% Mitt Romney, Liz Cheney, Adam Kinzinger. And so I'm going to push back and say that it's not a civil war, in that the grassroots, the voters, the majority of Republicans agree with that philosophy. It's only going to be that proverbial, peaceful, democratic civil war, and that we need to do a better job of encouraging our people to join their local Republican Party, to take it over from the bottom up and become precinct chairs, become county chairmen, become elected officials. And yes, I am working to primary Adam Kinzinger in Illinois' 16th district. I am working to primary Liz Cheney. And I'm doing that strategically because I want to let the Republican Party know that this is our party, not theirs, that they work for us, not the other way around. But most importantly, I'm a constitutionalist, and Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney, in their phony impeachment sham, were for an unconstitutional measure, and therefore they betrayed their oath to us, we the people.
It's very interesting too, because I know Mitch McConnell, who's also been called a rhino very often, said recently that he would support Trump in a 2024 run. One last topic I wanted.
He's not dumb.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It kind of seems like they know who they have to back. But I wanted to ask you, Joe Biden's been president for about a month now. Through many different executive orders, he's undone Trump's executive orders. But one big act to pass was the Equality Act. Can you tell me a little bit more about whether or not you think that's a big concern? Because that's something that Republicans constantly rail against. As I understand, this Equality Act, it's supposed to make people unable to discriminate on the basis of gender identity and things like that.
I'm a connoisseur of voter registration, door knocking, grassroots activism. I have not read the Equality Act. However, I will say, as an LGBTQ American, whatever you would like to call me, I believe in women's rights. And there's a reason why, biologically, we've separated men and women's tennis, for example, and we haven't had them playing against each other because men and women's bodies are built biologically, physically different. Our bone mass is different. There are certain biological differences. And so therefore, I do not support legislation that would hurt women's rights.
Hey everybody, I hope you're enjoying the video. If so, be sure to drop me a like down below. Enjoy the rest of the show.
No, we're just taking pictures.
How's your day go?
It's going well.
How's your CPAC?
It's going well.
Did you just get here?
I just got here like an hour ago.
Nice.
Yeah.
You're putting yours on? I was going to take mine off.
Oh, all right.
I like your dress.
I like your shirt.
How you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm excited to see how the pictures come out.
Excited
to see it.
I love that.
Yeah, it's a B-roll. There's just one topic I wanted to follow up with you on. I know there's been a lot of scrutiny on OAN specifically for a lot of their reporting. So I kind of wanted to ask you point blank, like, do you accept the results of the 2020 election and that Joe Biden is like rightfully elected and in office now?
Here's what I'll say. I don't speak for all of OAN because I don't work on the news side.
Okay.
Just like if you look at Fox or CNN or MSNBC, they always divide the two, rightfully so. We have talk shows, which are opinionated talk shows. I'm the host of a talk show.
Yeah.
I'm not a news anchor on the news side. Now, for 23 years, I was a local news anchor at different affiliates around the country, from Palm Springs to Las Vegas.
So as a radio host that works at OAN.
So as a television talk show host, I have an opinion. So I'm not speaking for OAN. In my opinion, there was so much election fraud in multiple states, more than the 5 or 6 we're discussing, that yes, I think, now let me back one up. Was there enough to overturn it? I don't know and will never know. That's the problem.
Exactly.
Okay? There was election fraud. I don't care what Mr. Krebs, who Donald Trump fired, rightfully so, who came out right after the election and said it was the most secure election in history. That's a load of bullshit.
I know
okay?
there was former
Back
attorney
up-
Bill
back-
Barr who
back
said
up
that
2
this was
years,
Trump's appointed.
Back up
Attorney
2
Bill
years,
Barr.
back up 4 years, back up 6 years. You're on YouTube, right? Do some Googling and look around on YouTube. You will find CNN reports from 04, 08, 12, and 16 where they're interviewing Democrats talking about election fraud, and they use Dominion, okay, and Smartmatic. They say the words in their reports, and they talk about mail-in ballots, and they use the word fraud and election and voter fraud. They said it over the last 16 years, but we can't say it this year. You know why? Because they wanted Donald Trump gone.
So I know
Period.
OAN specifically, they have to like include a lot of these disclaimers when they're doing some of their reporting on the talk show side or the news
There's
side.
no disclaimers
but,
on the talk show side. News I'm not
Sure.
going to discuss. I don't work in news.
but as I understand, there's libel concerns now, and like Dominion is coming after OAN right now for the supposed libel against them. And like, do you think that that's potentially bad that OAN might be misreporting what's going on here? Will it be right for Dominion to come after and try to shut down OAN for spreading something that's potentially
Look,
untrue about
it's
them?
called
Because
freedom of speech.
Dominion's
It's
company
called
now is going to be
freedom of
destroyed.
speech.
Yeah,
It's called freedom of
you can't
speech.
libel somebody under
Listen,
freedom of speech.
If there is election fraud, if you have multiple witnesses across multiple states signing affidavits, okay? You know what an affidavit is, right?
Yes.
Under the perjury penalty of law. You can go to jail if you sign those. You realize there was hundreds of those in multiple states. So are you telling me all those people lied about what they witnessed?
I don't know if all
That
those
they're willing to
people-
go to jail for it?
Sure. But I know Attorney Bill Barr said there wasn't enough widespread voter fraud to overturn the election. I know in the case of Pennsylvania, when they tried to take to the Supreme Court, it was a 7-2 decision. Two of the three people who
great.
decided not to take up the
Great.
case
Great.
were
Great.
Trump appointees.
Great.
Not only that,
We
you'd
had
have
a
to
forensic
overturn
audit?
you'd have
we
to
had a forensic audit?
No, but we'd have to
Exactly.
overturn
Done.
like 3 or 4 states.
Done with this question. Move on. Have we had a forensic audit?
No, I
Done.
mean,
Move
okay,
on.
absolutely.
Next question.
Sure. Can you tell me
Until
what
we get a forensic audit, you can't tell me how much election fraud there was, right? Because Dominion won't give us the servers to examine them because they've thrown the envelopes away that millions of the mail-in ballots came in, so we can't compare the signatures on the envelope with a legitimate address to make sure those people live there and aren't dead to match up with the actual ballot. Those are gone. Poof. The machines have been stored away. So without forensic audits, without the signatures, without the envelopes, you'll never know how much election fraud there was. So don't come at me.
Couldn't
and
you say that for
"Excuse
any
me,
election, though?"
Why can't you? Yes.
Okay,
in
so
every election.
That's
why
the losing
election
side could
integrity
always
should
say
be one of the number one concerns for all Americans, left, right, and different. It should be election integrity going into 2022, even at the local level. That should be one of the biggest concerns for Americans right now behind freedom of speech being taken away, because our elections are fraudulent. We've had problems for decades, and they know it. Do your research and go look it up.
Absolutely. And
Democrats have said it for years. Excuse me, in 17, go find out how many Democrats stood up against the Electoral College vote certifying Donald Trump.
Yeah, a bunch
They
of them
stood-
said not my
Thank you.
president, and I hold them
Thank
accountable
you.
too. But here's the thing:
So
not a
why
lot of these
can't,
companies.
why can't Republicans say it right now then?
Because, as I understand,
why?
there isn't enough evidence to show the things that you guys are saying,
Because
and
we
that's
can't
why.
get
And that's
more
why.
evidence.
Well,
If you can't do a forensic audit, how
so
can
the
you have the
absence
actual
of evidence
X?
isn't the evidence of absence, but you guys need. This needs to be.
No,
if a crime is
their
committed, you need
questions
to.
remain, and if you can't have answers to those questions, are we supposed to just shut up and be a good little lapdog and move on?
A lot of
Okay,
people. Well,
so you
the
won't let
Supreme
us
Court's
examine
not.
the machines. You won't let us do the roll calls. You won't let us do a forensic audit of the ballots. But we're telling you it was the most secure election in history. So shut up, be a good doggy, go sit in the corner. That's not how America works.
How should
We
Republicans
ask
respond?
questions. We should demand election integrity and fix it, but it has to get fixed at the local level and the state level. So state legislators need to now rewrite their election laws. I think you need voter ID for everyone. It's not racist to ask for an ID. Did you have to show your ID to get in here?
Yes, I did.
You did. Thank you, to come into a convention. But one of our most sacred things in this country, go vote. You don't have to show an ID. Tell me how that's racist. I want you to have that debate with
It's
me.
not racist at all.
Thank you.
I wanted to follow up with you on another point here. Many people, the narrative has become that many people in the media that are talking a lot about this Stop the Steal kind of narrative sort of encouraged what happened on January 6th, the January 6th riots. They almost feel like they encouraged and like they'd say they fueled the flames here to try to get people mad and have people storm the Capitol. What do you make of what occurred on January 6th?
Let me tell you something that's happened in this country, okay? We have created a couple generations, I think, of self-entitlement, of people playing victims, of no one being held accountable, no self-accountability. So the Democrats have taken what happened on the 6th, which was horrible, by the way, and literally tried to place blame on someone. Instead of saying the few bad agitators, which I believe were from fringe groups on the left and the right, both, Go look it up.
Do you have evidence? Yeah, no. Do you have evidence of people who were there on the left? Because I was there, and
how about Jaden X? How about our friend Mr. Sullivan?
One fringe person though. This was one fringe person.
You're telling me there wasn't more than him?
Not that I saw, not that I witnessed.
Really?
But I did witness.
Why did he wear
I did
a Trump hat when
did
he's
witness.
going in, then take it off, and then talk with his girl who you worked for NPR and CNN, bragging about, look what we just did, and we got in. Oh, you weren't recording that? Delete that video.
Do you think this was
Why were they so
predominantly
worried?
Trump supporters though, or
I
predominantly
don't know. I
people on
wasn't
the
there.
left?
Do you know?
Yeah, I mean, in my experience as a
did?
reporter, yeah.
How do you know?
Because I was there reporting on the event
Okay.
with multiple other reporters.
Do you know that people changed outfits? There's video out there of them changing under trees and going from red MAGA stuff to black gear.
Sure, but couldn't you
Why
say
were they
that
doing
about
that?
any? Couldn't you say that about
Exactly.
Antifa? You could say that
So there
Trump
was
supporters
fringe groups
changing.
there was fringe groups on both sides.
Do you think everybody
So
who
why are
committed
they
crimes
only
there should be
blaming-
held
excuse
accountable?
me. Of course they should.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Why are you only blaming it on people you think were MAGA supporters?
Well, because this was a Trump rally that happened prior to, and most of the people. No, this is a
FBI
false
already
narrative.
said-
This is a
FBI
false
already
narrative.
came out and said stuff was pre-planned, and they started attacking 21 minutes before the speech even ended.
Okay.
So don't tell me the speech incited it. I'm tired of that BS narrative
I'm not saying
too.
that the speech
Okay.
incited it, but I'm saying there were
Yeah.
predominantly
That's
Trump
why he
supporters.
was acquitted too. That's why
Sure.
he was acquitted.
Well, impeachment's a strictly political thing, and it doesn't really mean much either
Yeah,
way.
it is
But-
political theater.
Huh? I have them. I'm drinking. You see that? Not much.
Yeah, I have my coffee in my bag. I should get it out so I can.
Is your shirt tight enough? You think your shirt's tight enough?
No, I think
Hey, it's Steven Spielberg. It's me, Jay. Nice, nice, nice. Steven, make the next movie about Republicans in a good way.
Yeah, Daily Wire will produce it.
No? Okay.
I'm not that much of a seller.
No.
should be.
But you look like it when you was young.
Stealing,
Really, yeah?
Yeah. I believe it.
Same tribe, you know.
Hey.
How you doing?
Mr. O'Keefe, how's it going?
Nice to see you.
My name is Elad Eliyahu. We've met once before,
Yes,
but
yes.
I'm excited for the formal interview. So we're out here in Orlando, Florida for CPAC. Can you tell me a little bit more about why you decided to come out?
Well, we were offered a chance to speak. We brought our 6 whistleblowers on stage from Facebook, Google, Pinterest, the USPS, and they came on stage, and I think it was inspirational, and hopefully we inspire some more people to do the same.
Awesome. I wanted to ask you, we've been talking about a lot of issues that the American people are facing in the United States nowadays. We have the lockdowns, right? People are nervous about being canceled. I wanted to ask you, what do you think the biggest threat Americans are facing today?
Not getting information that's true, getting information that is not true, and information that is true is called disinformation. We're sort of living in a variation of George Orwell's 1984, this idea of newspeak or doublethink, that our journalists are not doing journalism. We saw it firsthand with the stories that we did in the fall, which were incontrovertibly true. They were videotape of cash exchanged for ballots, and the media attacked us, defamed us. It was disgusting, and we're going to sue them, by the way. We are suing the New York Times for defamation. So I think these are the biggest threats we face. Someone has to fight back. We're doing it in our own way.
I wanted to follow up with you on that. Were you talking specifically about the case of Ilhan Omar's
Yes.
constituents, or like somebody she was working with buying ballots? People were saying that this was widely discredited. The person who
exactly.
was
And that's defamatory. It wasn't discredited.
Sure.
And they interviewed the individual in the vehicle that had all the ballots all over his lap, and they just interviewed him on the record, and he just made some stuff up. So we intend to sue that man for defamation.
As I understand, they said there was no link between him and the Ilhan campaign.
We
What do you
stand
make
by our reporting about exactly what was stated in the expose. And it is illegal to have more than 3 ballots in the vehicle. That is indeed illegal. But
So,
nobody
yeah.
reported that.
Yeah.
So what is that if not disinformation? For the mainstream media to selectively edit that out of their articles. And that's what they do. See, this is what they do. It's the boycott of inconvenient doctrine. It's all about narrative to the mainstream media. They show you what they want to show you. And that's not fair. So it's basically a form of psychological projection. It goes back to Carl Jung. It's a Freudian thing.
It's interesting
They
because-
they project onto me what it is that they do. They deceptively edit. They use anonymous sources. We show you people's faces. We don't report anything unless you can see the person's lips moving. The
Well,
Washington
wait, in the
Po-
Ilhan,
yeah.
for the Ilhan case, weren't some of the faces blurred for the other source? I think there were 2 sources.
I believe there was one, but the New York Times said that we solely use anonymous sources, which was a damn lie.
It seems like there's a battle for journalism
Did
going
you just
on
hear
here.
what I said?
Yeah.
The New York Times lied about us, and we're going to sue them, and we're going to win. And that scares the shit out of them, as it should, because we're going to depose them. We're going to put them under oath. And if you lie about Project Veritas, you will pay. You will apologize, you will retract, and you'll eventually give me money. That's how it works. They've never faced a foe like Project Veritas. They've never met anyone like me. I don't care what they think about me. But if you lie about me, I will make you tell a federal judge under oath what the truth is, contradicting yourself, embarrassing yourself, you retract, you pay. They've never dealt with someone like us.
Let me follow up and ask you, because there seems to be a battle over journalism going on, because everything you're saying about them, they say about you, right? So
Yeah,
you
but the difference is I have a wall in my headquarters of all the corrections they've made.
Yes. But that's a good thing that they made corrections. No, making corrections.
I've only made 1 or 2 corrections in my entire career. I stand by all of our journalism. I've won every lawsuit that we've litigated at Project Veritas.
When they say that you guys misleadingly edit,
excuse me,
yes.
They settle scores of lawsuits.
Of course, yes.
The CNN settled lawsuits. You should go talk to them about that. Why are they settling lawsuits with Nick Sandman? Absolutely. I don't settle lawsuits at Project Veritas. We've never settled one lawsuit at Project Veritas. That's an extraordinary accomplishment. Find another chairman of another media company which hasn't settled a lawsuit. So, again, it's George Orwell's 1984. It's called newspeak or doublethink. Yes. To believe that black is white, and then 1 minute later to say that black is black, and to never have acknowledged saying black is white. It's psychotic.
Please let me follow up. I wanted to ask, do you think this is an issue on just one side of the political
No.
aisle, as i.e.
No,
the liberals?
I don't.
Because now let me get the full question out. Because as I understand, some farther right-wing media sources are also dealing with getting sued for libel and stuff like this. So is this an issue of
lying is wrong.
Yeah,
I don't consider myself part of the conservative movement.
Sure.
I think fact-finding has become a conservative endeavor for reasons I don't understand.
Do you only find facts, though, that happen to help conservatives? Like, you're never going after any
I published a videotape in New Hampshire. I published Raquel Rodriguez was helping a Republican Congressman Garza. She was arrested for ballot harvesting. I published a videotape of a Republican not majority leader, but president of the Senate Wisconsin. He was a Republican, he resigned. I published a videotape in New Hampshire showing ballots given out in the names of Republicans.
Okay.
And over time, you're going to see, we did a story on Jeffrey Epstein. That's not a Republican story. That was Amy Robach of ABC News. But again, it's just funny because the media is entirely monolithic in who they go after, and they're considered all the news that's fit to print. Dean Baquet, the head of the New York Times, has to appeal to his audience. He is a slave to his subscribers, and they can't publish facts that run contrary to narratives. For example, they don't report on any voter fraud. Now, you can say that the voter fraud is not magnanimous enough to swing an election, but there still is some degree of fraud. Don't tell me that fraud doesn't happen.
Couldn't you say that fraud exists in every election, though? Do you think there was enough evidence for fraud to overturn the election?
And maybe Project Veritas needs to do more, but don't hate me for exposing fraud wherever it may be. That's just an absurdity. It's like, well, fraud isn't big enough. Well, let's say, who are you to say fraud isn't big enough? If fraud happens on any level, it deserves to be reported on. And the fact that the New York Times did defame me, it's anathema to what journalism ought to stand for. I have to go. If you have one more question.
Can I get that? Yeah. Do you think there was enough evidence to overturn the 2020
election? I don't
election?
know. Sure. But I'm fighting.
Evidence currently out, though, so we can't ever know the totality.
You're not even allowed to report on evidence, my friend, without being banned from Twitter. You can't even do reporting on facts without being banned. So your question has unfortunately become a cancel question. If I engage in reporting on fraud, they defame me. So unfortunately, I can't answer.
Project Veritas gets suspended.
Yeah, but I stand by reporting, and I will defeat them in federal court. You watch.
Thank you so much for your time. All right, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you.
Hometown legend.
Yeah, you the boys, Long Island boys, Long Island boys. Did you see the little push at the end, or was that just me? The little, wasn't there a little? I'm sensitive, but wasn't there a little something?
I think he touched you.
Wait, no, it was sexual harassment. I'm gonna meet to her. Yeah.
Recancel.
He wasn't happy. Hey everybody, Hey everybody, thank you guys so much for tuning into another episode. If this is your first time here, please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, stay barely informed.